My name is Simeon Pascal AKERE-MAIMO. I want to present to you a poem titled Rain of Tears, produced by Mr. AKERE-MAIMO, Bamende 2000. Rain of tears, for how long shall we cry? Our tears flooded with sorrow, we sob. A rainfall of saturated misery. Our hearts burn hot, we cry. Our mouths fed with words of sorrow, we speak. Our mind ache every day with problems, we think. To a nation in flood, a nation struggling in the hissing storm of frustration.
That was Simon Pascal setting the pace on to this edition of the program. He just recited a poem from the book KIMAN, Songs of War, Songs of Praise. And of course, you understand that on today's edition, we are talking poetry. We are looking at KIMAN, Songs of War, Songs of Peace, a book co-authored by AKERE-MAIMO and Sabini Lee. We are delighted to have one of them in the studio. AKERE-MAIMO, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's a pleasure to be on your show. It's a first time being on the book with Susie. Okay. And I think I feel very excited. Okay.
So much is said about KIMAN, Songs of War, Songs of Praise, that it's not any kind of book. It is therapeutic. It is too intense. What's your take on this?
Yes, I know a lot of people shy away from poetry, saying it's overloaded language, you know, it's thoughts put together, they are verses. But in our own kind of poetry, we try to make use of the concept of key messaging. You know, poetry, it's presented in a very light-hearted manner. I know you find it hard because at times the language employs a lot of metaphor, idiosyncrasies, but our message is that of peace and reconciliation. That's why we term it KIMAN, which is a concept which actually denotes the completion point of peace in any war process. So we are talking like, we imagine that war is like climbing a hill. So once you get to that top of the Kilimanjaro, see if I can put it that way, you reach the completion point, and once you reach that point now, you start talking peace and reconciliation as you go down the valley.
Present to us KIMAN, for those who are watching.
KIMAN, it's a poetry collection, actually divided in 6 uneven parts. Say it starts with dirty politics, Lapiroing, drawing inspiration from the legend, the musical legend and icon Lapiro. So we use the Mboko style kind of singing. You know, it's a pidgin philosopher, but we are using a style to employ it in poetry. It's my own innovation in poetry to bring Mboko styled poetry as a way of conveying the message to those who may not really don't understand the kind of hardcore poetry you want to think of. So now you get to path 3, which that focuses on devil, war. We actually demonize war. So we call the dog the bad name to kill it. And the 4th part has to do with terror and war, so that we highlight or we present episodes of war to show the bad side of war, the terror and horror of war. And then we dive in KIMAN, which for us is like the climax in the book. KIMAN actually, like I told you in Lamstor, means peace and reconciliation. There now we start talking about peace, the peace processes, peace poems. And then now the book phases out with the last chapter that has to do with redemption songs. And if you base it on Bob Marley, you see you're talking redemption songs now that we are free from and emancipated from such a crisis, which usually emanates from individuals like us. And like I said, it's our own contribution. It's an advocacy tool that we're using to call on the powers and the people that to be able to give peace a chance in our country.
Okay, that's what it is, KIMAN. I hope that you're going to take delight in reading the numerous poems that are in the book. It's time for the foreword, and we are glad to have the person that wrote the foreword of this book. There are many of them, but we've chosen one. He's on standby. Let's watch.
the concerns raised.
The two authors vividly captured the reasons, the path that got us into the security quagmire that we are now witnessing in the Northwest and Southwest regions. And so I asked the question, is it only a descriptive analysis of what got us to where we are? Lo and behold, there was a response right at the end, towards the end of the book. And since there is a lot of talking about peace, bringing about peace in the Northwest and Southwest regions, and the far north and other relatively restive areas or regions in our country, the book takes us by the hand and says that for there to be peace, and that is why I consider it relevant, for there to be peace, peace must begin in our hearts. Because as we all know, it is in the hearts of men that war is conceived. And so it has to be in the hearts of men that peace overtures have to develop. It begins right from our hearts. So that is why the authors of Sounds of War and Sounds of Peace, that is where they capture the situation. They say that in peace building, it has to begin in our hearts. They didn't end there. The second thing that I thought was relevant to the current situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions is that they say we must take action. We must not only transform our hearts, but we must take action. Action, it means our attitudes, how we relate with one another in community, in living together, how we consider others without the use of hate speech, tribalism, and other vices that tend to divide us instead of bringing us together. So there must be an action to be taken. We must not only believe, transform our hearts. We now must make the action to happen, for peace to happen, to go towards the other. It will take quite some time for this to materialize into a real peaceful solution. For as William Shakespeare said in Othello, and I quote, "How poor are they that know not patience? What wound ever did heal, but by degrees." End of quote. So it might take some time, but it will definitely happen.
You're welcome back, and if just joining us, you're watching The Book with me, Susan Bell, and we are reading KIMAN, Songs of War, Songs of Peace, authored by AKERE-MAIMO and Sabini Lee. Maimo, tell me, the book is co-authored, as I said, by you and NSAIBIRNI
Warren Lee.
Warren Lee, okay. I hope that I've not bruised his name, so sorry. I want you to talk to us about your collaboration with him, and of course share the vision that both of you have for this book.
Actually, we got together about 5 or so years ago. Actually, Warren Lee happens to be a kid brother. He's into sociolinguistics. I'm more into civil society, creative writing as a whole, journalist, by profession. And Warren Lee is bringing, from his background as a peace advocate, the idea too was that we could put together our thoughts, because when you collaborate, you make a force, a synergy, it's more powerful. And our message, like earlier on highlighted, is that of peace and reconciliation. So actually, when we shared thoughts, because actually he got attracted to me, like he always said, by a song I wrote, Mami Achu. So he wondered how an artist could write such a praise song for a local dish. So that's how we talked, and we discovered we also do poetry, and the idea of KIMAN came up, and we said, okay, why not put it into a book? And that's how we brought on board a series of publishers. We worked with Pabu Mako, who suggested the idea of having it Pan-African, have a local name called KIMAN. And we had people like our own Martin Jumbam, who did the proofreading. He's an expert in the field. And a series of others, like you can see in the blogs that provided quite some critiques to the book. Even during the launching, we had our own in-house man here at CRTV, Ashunyensi, Douglas Ashingale, who did a marvelous job to present reviews of that book.
Okay. You are a peace advocate, you said at the beginning. Do you think that with poetry you can efficiently militate for peace?
Why not? Poetry, like every literary genre, is a powerful tool for advocacy. It's literary weaponry, or a literary weapon to be able to challenge the status quo. You know of Wole Soyinka of Nigeria. You've heard of our own literary heavyweights in Cameroon, like the Mongo Betis, the late Bate Bisson, who was like a tiger with a pen. So poetry, like I said, makes use of key messaging. I know what key messaging is in terms of communication. Unlike prose you need to read, but with poetry you can say something in just 5 minutes or in 30 seconds and you send across the message.
Okay. At the beginning of this program, we saw the little Simeon Pascal recite a poem, which is the first poem in this book, and it is titled Rain of Tears. Please, can you tell us the message which is behind that poem? Rain
of Tears actually is a poem I wrote way back in high school. That's in 2000. Actually, Rain of Tears is talking about a nation in flood, actually. A nation struggling in the currents of the time, in terms of political liturgy, in terms of poor democratization process, in terms of bad governance, everything that you think can make a nation to progress, in terms of its economic growth and all of that. So my perception at the time, I was writing to say, let's stop the nimbus and build Cameroon a land of grace. So the key message in that Rain of Tears is not tears of sorrow per se, but tears of joy.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's time for us to have our Vox Pop, and the question is, what do you do to reconcile after a conflict? What do you do to reconcile after a conflict? Let's watch.
Well, for one, I don't look for problems and I run away from problems. But in case a problem comes towards me, I'll first of all find out what the problem is and why the person is reacting as such. And if I don't get any tangible reasons, I'll just stay away from the person, because people look for trouble for no good reason nowadays. So the best way is to respect your pace and even respect your inner peace.
I will need to humble myself, approach the person with whom I'm having the conflict, and open a dialogue with the person while praying to God to help me achieve the goal.
Well, I go back to the cause of the conflict, and then we try to see why it occurred, and thereafter we come to a consensus and life begins afresh. Conflict is not good for people who love.
First thing I do is I give myself some time to calm down, and after calming down I will get to that person, call that person, we have a one-on-one. I bring out my own errors, I apologize if need be, then I point out theirs and I expect them to do same. And after the apology, I think we are good to go.
You're welcome back, and I'm so excited to be with a poet in the studio, AKERE-MAIMO, and we are looking at KIMAN, Songs of War, Songs of Peace. As he puts it, it is a journey of, you say, reconciliation.
It's a transformative journey. So when they say journey, it's a journey of change, which means it's a continuum. Okay. It's a process. It's not something that happens in a day.
In a day.
In as much as we talk crisis, in as much as we talk about peace processes and consolidation, it takes time.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
like you talked about conflict, like you asked in the Vox Pop.
Yes.
You know, the importance about conflict is for us to identify, to first of all recognize that we mad, okay? In as much as you have an issue with your brother and sister. So, like I usually would describe it like in a marriage. If you have an issue with your wife, get into genuine dialogue. The moment you allow problems in-house get to be that of a third party of your neighbor, it goes out of hand.
Okay, some of the poems emphasize that when nations decide to play dirty politics, there's always a repercussion, which is war. There's always a repercussion, which is war. What is the cure?
Yeah, the cure is as simple as the problem itself. You see, the first thing in every circumstance is to be able to identify the cause. Okay, like we initially said, it's first of all to confront the person with whom you have a problem. So we assume, if you look at it from a macro level, which is within a country like ours, the first thing is, what are those pillars, what are those ingredients, what are those key factors that should bind us together, that should make us feel Cameroonian? The love for country, the love for nationhood, and then protecting the interests and the dignity of the people, and listening to all the children that make up Cameroon. So we are living in a situation where one part of the family is discriminated upon. The tendency is that it creates friction and misunderstanding. And at times, some of these crises will just be a question of poor communication, you know, and poor handling of situations when they happen. Because we know in every situation you have to be proactive. You have to have a mastery of the situation and react to it as fast as possible. So for me, I think, yeah, without trying to place blames, the essential thing is that wherever we find ourselves, the important thing is to get everybody on board. The warring factions, those who find themselves in such a difficulty, to talk to each other. Okay, listen actively to whoever presents a problem as it is, no matter how bad the situation is. You see, it's true. Some people say we destroy to make, you know, we must go through war to be able to grow bigger. But I don't think Cameroon had to go through that. Cameroon has always been seen as an oasis of peace. Why don't we live above that? Why don't we prove to the world that beside the war, we are still the oasis of peace? Okay. And that's the key message that we are bringing, KIMAN, and to say that we can come out of war bigger, more resilient and stronger, and we can build a better Cameroon. And
that is if we tried to search for the peace, and you say peace is not just a one-man thing, it is a collective thing.
Yes, and peace is not the absence of war. You can see be in a situation where there's no war and people are at daggers drawn or at loggerheads. So, in as much as you say you cease fire without, you know, getting deep into the hearts of men or the hearts of the people, you don't solve the problem. So at times the problem is deeper than we see it. You know, there are people, you may think, okay, you're ending it here, but you're digging another issue whereby others will get in crisis. So it's a question of getting people to talk, listening, and then addressing the issues step by step, and ensuring that you're more preventive in the way you tackle it, so that tomorrow, the same problem that happened today should not happen again.
Yes, I like when you put it that we should just be like the little Christ, you know, who will keep Peter from pulling off the ear of the other.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take our last break, which is titled On the Shelf. And what are we looking at today? Let's discover together.
In simple terms, publishing is the process of making information available to the public. It can be in form of print, it can be in front of oral mode, and then even the advent of social media, it has to do with disseminating information. But since we are talking much of book publishing, we are talking about the process of making information available on print or through books. As the world advances, especially the advent of technology, the advent of artificial intelligence, many kinds of publishing are popping up. But we have traditional publishing, we have self-publishing, we have hybrid publishing, we have independent publishing, and most recently we have ebook or online publishing. So for now, those are the types that we can say they do exist, or they are much available. But I know that as technology advances, many more will come up. In Cameroon, we will talk about traditional publishing, and perhaps online publishing. But we very much focus on traditional publishing because it is what has been used for long, and people are much more used to it, and it is much more regularized. It is much more, there is some degree of order in it. And traditional publishing has got to do with the process. It is a whole chain. As a matter of fact, publishing is a whole chain, okay? And it all begins from the author who brings his work to the publishing company. And when the work comes in, the work is being sent to an editor. But when it comes to book editing, any serious publishing house has an editorial policy. And so a book is accepted for publication in terms of its content, okay, and also how much it is in line with the editorial policy of that specific publishing house. When the editorial process is over, if the work is deemed necessary for publication, it's going to be notified to the author that the work is good for publication.
Well, you're welcome back, and I hope that you are taking delight watching this edition of the program. Of course, we are having, you know, someone who is very well versed in terms of poetry, and he's sharing his poems with us today. I want you to start with, or maybe give us one of the poems that touches your heart.
Well, this is a people's choice. This is a poem that was actually presented on the occasion of the book launch that took place on the 1st of November at the National Museum. The title is Terror Must Die. They kill our mothers, they kill our fathers, they kill our sisters, they kill our brothers. Yes, terror must die. They steal our sons and make them child soldiers. They steal our daughters, convert them into suicide bombers. Yes, terror must die. They burn our villages. Everyone goes on rampage. Sad stories on all pages. Terror nasty they wage. Yes, terror must die. They loot our cattle as food for their battle. They are too little, yet empty guns they rattle. Yes, terror must die. Yes. Families hunger and thirst. Abandoned, they die in distress. Children and women victims first. A war of lie and craze. Yes, terror must die.
Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. You know, even if you're not well versed, you know, in terms of poetry, at least that it's easily understood. Right.
So I guess at the end of this show, you understand the power of poetry. And you understand why we call it Songs of War, Songs of Peace. Because there's something music about poetry.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why beautiful. In our own little project, we are engaging all actors, all artists that be, that serve as advocates of peace to get inspired from our poetry to write songs. Some of the poems here, actually, there are songs that I wrote. I think someday when I come here, I will bring my guitar so that I can present it in a more lyrical way.
We'd love to hear, we'd love to listen. Now, we'll be wrapping up in a short while. Please tell us, if anyone is interested in grabbing a copy, tell us, how do we get to you? They
can simply get to me through my contacts, 775 20 5867. As well as they can also get to a platform we created purposely for the advocacy side of this book, KIMAN World as one word.org.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a wrap for today. It's a wrap for today. We thank you for watching, and I equally thank you for coming.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I really love your show, the book with Susie. It's quite creative and innovative.
Oh, thank you very much. It goes straight to my heart. Thank you very much for watching. See you some other time. Bye-bye. Love you.